Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We are here for week 7, top 30 wide receiver rankings. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and let's get right into it. All right, our wide receiver 1 for week 7 is going to be none other than Amon-Ra St. Brown. I know you've been slightly disappointed. He hasn't scored in back to back weeks, which has been shocking. But against this Bucs secondary, this is the matchup he absolutely needed. As we can see here, the past two matchups for the Bucs against wide receiver ones. The first one being JSN, 8 for 132 and 1. And then Kendrick Bourne went off for 5 for 142 this past week. This Bucs secondary has been getting gashed, and the Lions are going to definitely exploit it in this high-scoring affair, and it's a good get-right spot for Amon-Ra St. Brown. Moving right along, we are going to place JSN into our wide receiver 2 slot. His production has just been off the charts. As we can see here from this graph, JSN, wide receiver production, yards per route run, he is in a league of his own. He makes Puka look like nothing in this graph, which is shocking, and him and Darnold have seemingly had a mind meld to start this 2025 season. Moving right along, we got Justin Jefferson. So Jefferson has struggled to find the end zone in recent weeks, but I do think he's due for some positive regression in that area. O'Connell has been clearly dialing it up for Wentz to find Jefferson early and often, and against this Eagles defense, he should be able to do just that. I'd expect this game to be sneaky high scoring and the Vikings to keep it close, so Jefferson is going to be needed, and I think there's a high likelihood he finds the end zone in week 7. Into our wide receiver 4 slot, we got Davante Adams. Now, first time appearance for Davante in the top 5, and that's solely due to Puka Nacua likely missing this game. It's very smart. They have the bye week this following week after London, so Adams slots in as our wide receiver 4. Matthew Stafford, one thing about him, he loves to hyper-target his wide receiver 1. I'd expect Adams to get heavily featured, especially in this London matchup. They know they have to win. Stafford should probably throw for over 250, and Adams is going to probably get 14 or so targets if they want to win this game. And into our 5 slot is Rashee Rice, making his first game back from his suspension. The Chiefs have just been an absolute wagon as of late, especially through the air. As we can see, this pass rate over expected chart through week 5 is absolutely insane. The Chiefs are throwing more than any team in the NFL in neutral game scripts, and getting your best wide receiver back is definitely going to be an insane difference for them. So I'd expect Rashee to find the end zone and be heavily targeted as he has fresh legs ready to roll. Moving into our second tier here, shockingly, we got Ja'Marr Chase. I know he had an insane catch this past week against Green Bay, but I'm not sure how sustainable this offense is with Flacco. As we can see the game line here, the over-under is only set for 42.5 points. This is going to be a divisional, gritty game, a lot of defense being played. I'd expect them to kind of keep it low scoring and try and feature Chase Brown against the Steelers defense, which has been vulnerable against the ground. So I would kind of be tentative to be starting Chase. I don't think he has top 3 upside, but he is a safe play nonetheless. And next up is going to be Rome Odunze. Odunze struggled in week 6, but it was kind of a product of a bad game strip. They were up most of the game. That's usually never the case. That's going to happen, especially with this Bears defense. But against the Saints, who have been scoring at a rapid rate, I'd expect this to be a back-and-forth game, and the Bears are going to need to count on Odunze. The target share is still there. He's been averaging just around 8 targets a game. He should be able to be a primo star in this league, and the breakout continues to happen, and he is going to be firmly in my top 7. Now on to a guy who did ball out on Monday Night Football. It is Drake London. So London plays against the 49ers' banged-up defense. He should be able to eat in this matchup. Although Mooney didn't play last week, I do think he'll probably try and return against this Niners defense, so slightly temper expectations with London. I know he's much more efficient with Mooney out of the lineup, But this game should just be another heavy dose of Bijan and Drake London, which has been the recipe for success. So London is a firm must start. Staying in this tier here, we got George Pickens. So this is with the assumption that CeeDee Lamb is out, obviously. But George Pickens would still find himself inside my top 15 going forward, even with CeeDee Lamb playing. George Pickens has been on an absolute tear. We can see the fantasy finishes here. He is averaging over 20 points a game for fantasy. Top two finishes. What else do you want? 5 straight games with a touchdown. He has just been insane. They're developing this connection with Dak, and I don't think that's going to fully go away once CD comes back. But if you steal a game here with no CD, he is going to go nuclear like he has been all month. And our last wide receiver here in this tier is going to be Nico Collins. Nico is a wonderful wide receiver, but unfortunately this offense just struggles to move the ball unless they're playing the Titans, which they did last week. But against this Seahawks defense, which has been very hot or cold, on the road in prime time, I wouldn't expect too much from the Texans offense. We can see the game line. The over-under is only set at 40.5. They expect it to be a slugfest, and I do as well. Both these defenses know they have to be leaned on in order for their team to win. I'd expect a heavy dose of Woody Marks after the bye, but definitely still playing Nico Collins in your lineup because he obviously has that connection with CJ Stroud, and with no Witherspoon or Woolen on Seattle, they have just given up 8 for 90 to BTJ this past week and have seemingly showed themselves as very vulnerable. And into our next tier here, we got BTJ. As I mentioned before, 8 for 90 in week 6. Has found some connection with Trevor Lawrence as of late against this Rams defense, which has been stout, but they do give up a good amount of production to wide receiver ones, and I'd expect the Jags to be playing catch-up for most of this game, which has been the greatest beneficiary is BTJ in these matchups. I think that's why he was a major star at the end of last year and has kind of disappointed to start, is because the Jags have been winning games. Now, I'd expect them to be down in this game, so Lawrence having to chuck the ball 35, 40 times a game is only going to be good for BTJ, and I think he's firmly a top 15 player and wide receiver going forward. And rounding off our top 12 is DK Metcalf, another player here that is in the Thursday Night Football game, so we'll have our answer on how he produces, but it has been very touchdown or bust for DK. Although last week he had 9 targets, as we can see, the target share has been 7, 6, 4, 5. I'm hoping that after the bye they really realize that and making an emphasis to really hyper-target DK as the alpha they paid him to be. I do love this matchup. I think it'll be great for DK. And I do think he finds the end zone once again, continuing his streak, 4 straight games, but if he doesn't find the end zone, there's a good chance you're probably disappointed after Thursday night. On to Jalen Waddle. Not much to talk about here. It's pretty much the Dolphins. You play Devon Achane, you play Darren Waller, you play Jalen Waddle. Those are all 3 of the targets that the Dolphins have, and you sit everybody else. Against this Browns defense, it might be a little bit more tough sledding for the Dolphins, but Jalen Waddle's going to get his. He's going to get his targets. He might not find the end zone, but there's a good likelihood he's probably hovering around that 9 or 10 targets in this game. Into our last player on this tier is going to be Courtland Sutton. So Sutton, major disappointment in week 6. However, he did get the Sauce Gardner treatment. He was kind of blanketed by him all game. It's just one of those weird international London. You could tell by the first drive it's just going to be a weird game. I wouldn't make too much of it. I do think it's a get-right spot against the Giants here. Should be a little bit more high scoring. Dart is going to put some pressure, a lot more pressure than Justin Fields did for the Broncos to actually score the ball. So Sutton is a firm top 15 wide receiver for me in week 7. Moving into our next tier here, first off, we got Deebo Samuel against the Cowboys. I'm expecting Terry to miss another week, unfortunately. I'm not really sure what's going on besides it started off as a quad, then a core. People saying it might be a sports hernia, which would be very bad. But Debo is still going to be a must start, even with his own heel injury. I know he wasn't the best on Monday Night Football, but I would still start literally anybody against this Cowboys defense. There's probably a good chance this game is 34-30. As you can see in the sports book, over under 54 and a half. I can't remember the last time I saw a total that high. Vegas expects these teams to be dealing, and so do I. I'd expect the Cowboys to continue to give up points to the fantasy wide receivers and Debo to have a big game. Next up, we got Teteroa McMillan as our wide receiver 16 against the Jets. Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of him this week, going against Sauce Gardner, who has seemingly shut down wide receiver ones. I think this is a coming down to earth game for the Panthers. I know they're underdogs in this game, which is shocking, but they have seemingly dominated the Dolphins and the Cowboys in the past 2 weeks. Dominated as in put up a lot of yards and points. However, those are probably the two worst defenses in the league. So I wouldn't have the highest expectations for Tet against the Jets, although they are a bad defense. They definitely showed some life. They're playing hard for their coach. So Teteroa McMillan continues to be a stud, but only 3 catches last week. A little bit disappointed. Although you got those 2 touchdowns, you're definitely hoping that usage continues, but in a positive game script, I'm pretty sure they're just going to lean on Rico Dowdle with what he's been doing. And coming in at number 17 is going to be A.J. Brown. Probably the biggest disappointment in fantasy so far this year. If I had to kind of pin an award here, 6 weeks through the season. But against this Vikings defense, it doesn't get any easier. So in this chart here, we can see the wide receivers against the Vikings are absolutely terrible. They allow just the fewest points to fantasy wide receivers, only 10 a game. So I'd expect A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith to kind of struggle in this matchup. But hopefully the Eagles offense can figure it out. I know A.J. Brown, just his attitude is going to garner some targets, so you're kind of hoping that one of them turns into a touchdown, which makes him kind of a weekly top 24 play and a guy that you can't really bench unless you have other assets. And our last wide receiver in this tier is going to be Xavier Worthy. I mentioned it before, but this pass rate of the Chiefs is insane. They are going back to their air raid. Shades of Tyreek Hill here as far as the pass rate usage. For Mahomes and this offense, I'd expect them to dominate the Raiders. The only bad part about this matchup is that they might be up 20 before you even blink, and then they would just lean on their ground game. But they know they have to win. They know they have to keep the foot on the gas pedal. No room for error in order to win this division. So I'd expect them to have a pass-happy day with Rashee Rice back, and the Raiders know that. So Worthy can finally kind of not have the number 1 quarter on him at all times, and should probably be back in his deep ball threat role. I know he's been running a lot of underneath routes, but that is going to be Rashee Rice. So Xavier Worthy is going to be a stud this week as well. Into our next tier here, first off, we got Chris Olave. So Olave plays this Bears defense. As we can see, they rank 29th against fantasy wide receivers, allowing over 23 fantasy points a game. This is absolutely great because the Saints have no other wide receivers. Besides Rashid Shaheed, who is good for a big play here and there, Chris Olave is the clear favorite target of Spencer Rattler. Expect for him to get it done against this Bears team. And this should be a sneaky shootout, and I'd expect Chris Olave to soak up maybe 9 or 10 targets. He is pretty much as safe as they come in PPR leagues. Our wide receiver 20 here is Stephon Diggs. Diggs obviously blossomed in that game against Buffalo in his revenge game. However, against the Saints, I know it left a lot of you guys a little bit disappointed. However, it wasn't all that bad if you watch the game. As we can see here, a bad sports ref saying they missed a 51-yard catch to Stephon Diggs. It was a terrible pass interference call if you missed it. If they don't call that flag, you're probably looking at 5 for 95 in this game. nothing to be too ashamed of, and you would have a totally different attitude. So I would just kind of scrap that game and continue to play your stars, and Diggs should be in for a big game against this weak Tennessee defense. Our wide receiver 21 here is going to be Ladd McConkey against the Colts. Ladd has been hot and cold to say the least, but as of late, he made that game-winning catch and is going to be the wide receiver 1 going forward, in my opinion. I wouldn't expect Quentin Johnston to play with this hamstring. I'd expect them to continue to give him rest to recover, and Ladd kind of profiles as a top 24 wide receiver this week. So staying on the same team here, we got Keenan Allen, also against the Colts, obviously. One thing I did want to bring up here is this pass rate over expected chart once again. So we mentioned the Chiefs earlier, but the Chargers are second. They love to throw the ball. Running against the Dolphins with Kamani Vidal, yes, it was great. Will they be able to do that every game? No, because they don't play the Dolphins every week. They play this Colts defense, which has been stout against the running game. I'd expect them to have to throw the ball probably 70% of the time. And Justin Herbert knows that, and he's going to get his ball to the trusted targets in Ladd and Keenan in this one. I think both are safe and high upside plays. Same matchup, other team, we got Michael Pittman coming in next here against the Chargers defense. Pittman, obviously, it's pretty much been as safe as they come volume-wise. I know Josh Downs got a little bit more involved this past week, but Michael Pittman has just continued to be a wide receiver 1. It's clear he's the alpha here in Indianapolis, and in a game against the Chargers, they're actually underdogs. I'd expect them to have to play a little bit catch-up, back-and-forth game. They can't really just lean on Jonathan Taylor. I don't think you'll see a blowout where he has 30-plus carries, so this should favor the pass attack of the Colts, and I think Downs and Pittman are very safe floor plays in this matchup. Into our next tier here, we got Devontae Smith against the Vikings. We said earlier the Vikings are the toughest matchup against fantasy wide receivers, but Devontae has, if they hit that deep shot on Thursday Night Football, it is a whole different story on how you're viewing him going forward. He has looked great. He's probably been the lone kind of bright spot of this Eagles offense. He has looked good. Route-wise, he's getting open. It's just a matter of Jalen Hurts being able to find him. I do think he is a must-start in this week. Top 25 wide receiver. You have to be playing him just because of the big playability and his kind of ability to get open and probably command 7 or 8 targets, as the Vikings defense will probably shut down Saquon as their main focus. Wide receiver 25 on the week is going to be Kendrick Bourne. Back-to-back 140-yard weeks, as we can see. He has just really had this mind meld with Mac Jones. With the Niners, I'm expecting Mac Jones to play again. They might as well sneak in as much rest as they can for Brock Purdy with this turf toe while they're still afloat in the playoff race, and then get him back when he's fully healthy so they don't re-aggravate anything. And speaking of re-aggravating, George Kittle is back in the lineup, but obviously I think they're going to ease him into action, being a tight end over age 30, coming from a soft tissue injury. So I do think Bourne is still going to lead the team in targets and yards in this matchup, so enjoy this time. It'll probably be the last time you're starting Kendrick Bourne before Kittle and Ricky Pearsall are back to full strength. Last in this tier is going to be Jordan Addison against the Eagles. He has been the beneficiary of a massive big play in 2 straight games. So he is definitely capable of hitting the deep ball, and against this Eagles defense, which has been borderline quitting in the past few weeks, I think he is a great play. Very high upside play with Quinyon Mitchell likely shadowing Justin Jefferson. This opens the door for Addison to be able to kind of take the seam route and get upfield. I'd expect Addison to be a high ceiling play. You might be disappointed if they don't connect, but it is definitely worth the shot taking in week 7. Into our next tier here is going to be Matthew Golden. So Matthew Golden obviously started the season very sluggish, to say the least. I know he ended up on a lot of waivers. He should not be on waivers. He is the best, most talented wide receiver on this Packers team. And as we can see here with the snap count, he has continuously gone up in the rate. So he is almost at 70% of snaps, which is great for a wide receiver 1 rookie, and he should continue to get involved. And in a matchup against the Cardinals, which probably has Jacoby Brissett with them going on bye next week, they were able to move the ball pretty well against the Colts. So I'd expect this to be high scoring, back and forth, and the Packers will need to throw, and I'd expect them to lean on Golden and Kraft as they've been doing. Our wide receiver 28 is going to be Jacoby Myers against the Chiefs. Man, he has been disappointing so far, but with no Brock Bowers, you still have to continue to start him, and they are not playing the Titans, so they will have to play catch up against the Chiefs. They will probably be down 15 to 20 early in this game, and we'll see a lot of Geno Smith playing against a prevent defense, and Jacoby Myers being the number 1 target will likely soak up a lot of these targets and be a very, very safe play. Wide receiver 29 is going to be T. Higgins against the Steelers in this Thursday night matchup. He did score in the past 2 weeks, so T. Higgins is looking like a very safe start, especially with Flacco. I know the target count has been increasing for T. Higgins. Against the Steelers defense, you would expect Ramsey to be on Jamar Chase, so T. Higgins will kind of get the second quarter and be probably the main focus for the Bengals to be targeting in this divisional matchup. I'd expect Flacco to go after him heavily. I know they're expecting a lot of Jamar Chase, so that's exactly when T. Higgins will have a big game, and I think he is a safe top 30 play. All right, rounding out our top 30 is going to be Wan'Dale Robinson against the Broncos. He has been very hot and cold, but in a game where they are probably going to be a low-scoring team against Patrick Surtain. I know a lot of people have him ranked higher than this, but I just don't see a window for him to be a top 24 wide receiver this week. Getting guarded by Patrick Surtain is no joke, as we can see here, averaging 3 receptions a game and 32 yards a game. If you got that production, you would be absolutely livid. So I would temper expectations with Wan'Dale, especially with Jackson Dart as a rookie. I wouldn't expect him to be targeting Patrick Surtain all game long. So definitely keep Wan'Dale out of your lineups if possible, but still edges into our top 30 here. All right, that is going to do it, everybody. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe if you can, and we will see you next time. Thank you.